copy the resolution.
Actually, guys, I think we've got it here. My apologies, my greatest apologies. I think our way in is the final statement of it. That in-step recommendation is to update the 2004 study to reassess the feasibility of additional passenger ferry service to get people to, from, and across the North Shore. So perhaps our way in is that we follow up on the in-step recommendation.
Well, if council moves this, then it's a clear, if
so
council passes this.
Read the motion again, Tyler.
The council directs staff to start a discussion with TransLink about updating their feasibility study and look into operating a passenger-only ferry from Bowen Island to downtown Vancouver.
As referred to.
As per the in-step recommendation.
As per the in-step recommendation. Was there a
On
number
page-
on that recommendation?
Just put page 18.
As per the in-step report recommendation on page 18.
And then I'll second it.
Yeah.
Second it.
Okay. Yeah, I'd like to wrap this up.
We can
We're-
tidy the
we're running
wording up a
far,
little
far
bit.
behind here. We've got a few things before we go into our committee of the whole, and we still have lunch and a closed meeting.
Yeah.
Well, we can eat lunch during the
So-
closed meeting.
Do we need any more on this?
Just very quickly, we were out at the, David Hawkins was with me, we were out at the TransLink update, and yeah, there wasn't a lot of enthusiasm at that point in time. But obviously we didn't get anything from the CAO, but there was definitely nothing in his speech, but we also broke into regional rooms, and there wasn't much forthcoming there either. They're very busy, and I think it has to be a collaborative project between BC Ferries, TransLink, and us, or whatever. And I think of one trip down there and one trip back is never gonna be
That's
good,
how West Coast
unfortunately.
Express
Okay,
started.
now we're going into detail.
Yeah.
All in favor of the motion? Okay, that's passed unanimously.
Great.
Well done.
Sorry, I have to.
No, that's good.
Metro Vancouver report?
Yes, two things. The first relates to a resolution that we passed at our last meeting, and let me just bring it up here. It was resolution 18-373. It was moved and seconded that council send a letter to Metro Vancouver Regional Parks expressing its support of the annual Loggers Show being held at Crippen Park. Murray drafted a letter, sent it to me. I took a look at it and I thought this seems weird. So I got in touch with Jeff Fitzpatrick at Metro and asked if it was the appropriate approach to send a letter to the Parks Committee. And he said essentially, no, it's not necessary. This can be considered as a booking request, as any other booking request could be considered. I also spoke with Tom Cohn locally, and he and Gary have had that conversation. So both the local and Metro staff and the manager of Parks West say it's really not necessary. So I'd like to request to rescind that motion.
Well, is there any harm in sending him a resolution to Metro Parks West to say we're supportive?
We could send it to Metro Parks West, but they said it's not necessary at all.
Well,
It's fine if they're going to do it anyway, we don't need to send it. But if they say it's not necessary and then they turn it down,
yeah.
we're going to look a little silly in the eyes of the logging people.
I don't know how it could hurt if we just say, they've been good tenants and they've done a lot of work
What
up
did our
there.
resolution say?
The
And-
resolution said,
Tom actually thought there should be a letter.
I spoke with him, he said it wasn't
Wow.
necessary, and I have confirmation. The council sent a letter to Metro Vancouver Regional Parks expressing its support of the annual Loggers Show. I mean, if you want to send a letter, send it to Jeff, not to the
Yeah, because
committee.
we said to regional parks, so I think we can just clarify that it's to go to Metro Parks West.
If you just change whatever I sent you to the appropriate person to send it to.
All
I
right,
wanted to talk to Gary Anderson about it, and I don't have his number handy, he doesn't have an email address, so I just haven't gotten to dealing with it. But I think maybe, Maureen, that's the better, and then, we've covered ourselves
Okay.
if something goes astray.
I'll
further
give you
down the road.
the number.
I've
Yeah.
got his number too.
Oh, okay, I'll give him a call.
I think he just wants something sent to Metro that we're supportive of.
Right,
So
Fair enough.
Metro Parks West is
we'll
fine.
just,
Can't hurt anything.
yeah, give me the number, we'll move on.
Yeah.
What's else?
the other thing is that, and I sent you all an email regarding this, that at the Friday Metro Vancouver board meeting, the board is being asked on the consent agenda, which is significant, on the consent agenda to write a letter in support of designating Bowen Island as an eligible rural community. So letters to Flinro regarding the BC Rural Dividend Program, Minister of Jobs, Trade and Technology regarding ICT, the Island Coast Economic Trust, and third letter to the Federal Minister of Innovation, Science and Economic Development with respect to Community Futures funding. And also to write a letter to Flinro and Rural Development requesting a review of the BC Rural Dividend Fund eligibility criteria, which specifically excludes communities within the Metro Vancouver Regional District. So the upshot of the correspondence that Murray and I sent to Chair Moore is that they are making this recommendation, and they're going one step further. So the report that is in the Friday agenda is worth looking at. They're going one step further and saying that there are other municipalities within Metro Vancouver that are negatively affected by the current definitions, and the point that's made is that perhaps this is too coarse a definition to actually serve its purpose, that it should be more granular and more respectful of the characteristics of the individual small communities. So this is a very good
Here,
outcome.
here. Yeah, that's
and
great.
Let's hope that it is supported.
Okay. On to Islands Trust.
Islands Trust, just to report on the same topic, based on all of these groups and MPs and MLAs are looking at the motion that was passed by the Islands Trust Council, and CRD, the Capital Regional District, has already made those kinds of recommendations too. That's because of Salt Spring and the other southern Gulf Islands are down there in the same position as Bowen, not being eligible for most of the rural funding, although they've crept their way into some of it. We met on Keats Island as the Islands Trust Council, which is our neighbor just over there in Gambier Keats Trust area, last week.
And we luxuriated at a camp,
Yeah,
Oh, thanks.
which wasn't really a camp.
it was beautiful. The point is, we discussed a few amendments to the Islands Trust Act, so they're kind of updating it, that maybe the next Trust Council will take forward or maybe not. We talked about the advocacy that Islands Trust is doing for all islanders in the Islands Trust area. For example, Trans Mountain Pipeline advocacy is a big one right now, where we wrote to the Prime Minister. Most of us signed it. And affordable housing they're working on, and I'll just keep it quick. The last one, we had a presentation from our freshwater specialist. Many of the islands are having challenges with providing enough fresh water, and maybe not exactly now, but it's coming up soon, which is why we're making plans to help all the islands with different ways that we can protect our watersheds on the islands. That was our last council meeting, so that will go on in the next Trust Council.
Okay,
All right.
thank you.
So my resolution passed to amend the municipal pool calculation. And we had some very interesting presentations. There was something on the Connected Coast fiber optics briefing, and some very interesting presentations from the Suzuki Foundation, from House on Biosphere, and all those PowerPoints will get posted to the Ontrust website. So when we get them, we'll send them around, because they are of some interesting mapping and things like that.
You go. Okay, do Snug Cove House before we do items removed from the agenda. So where are we? You
Well,
had
just-
that brought up,
yeah.
Gary?
Just very quickly, I was in correspondence with Snug Cove House, and they've got a little bit of a problem. Obviously, with their zoning, which has been done in the land use bylaw for that piece of property, they are not understanding. They're in a position right now where they're hiring architects, designers, builders, everything. They want to get going on.
Property owner, purchasers are.
Purchasers, yes.
Yes, purchasers, yeah. And they've hit this roadblock where with the FSR, which is, there's absolutely no question that the legislation that is there is 100%, legal, and it's just the way it was supposed to be, and they've misunderstood it. I don't know where that misunderstanding came from, and, oh, there's Judy. I don't know where the misunderstanding came from, but, and I guess the only reason they wanted to bring it to council is to just, and it's not gonna really help because it's not gonna come to council or this council, but to get some idea of how council felt about this going forward, because they're gonna have to do a rezoning, there's no question, to get this clarified.
What? No.
Well, it's not, no.
You're jumping.
So, you know, what would be the appetite, you know, for this council, obviously, it's just a straw poll of whether we would receive it at all.
Back up one and just ask Daniel for some
Well,
clarification. So 140 square meters is,
1,500 square feet.
okay, and we're talking about area 3 in this land use
Yeah.
bylaw,
Yeah.
right?
Right-hand
So
column.
140 square meters is 1,500 square feet?
Give or take, yeah.
Okay, so, and if I'm reading that, it says maximum size for attached dwellings detached, not including one parking space in an attached garage. So the 1,500 square meters, or square feet, doesn't include the attached garage.
Correct for that.
Okay. But where the hiccup
The FSR.
is in the FSR is for all buildings and structures, and that doesn't matter whether it's, single family, single dwelling or a duplex dwelling. The
Yeah.
0.85, so in the duplex lots, because they're bigger, the 0.85 is, or is the 0.85 is what's turning out to be the limiting factor?
Yeah.
Which means basically you're not being allowed to have, are there any of the lots where 1,500 square feet is less than 0.85?
So, sure, all those lots
yeah.
below.
They're all, if they're built as single families, I think, so even the top ones, like there's nothing in our zoning that says those top lots are duplex zones. We just allow a certain number of units, and they've subdivided it into a certain number of lots that they've internally, like Suncoast House has delegated units to those, but
Okay.
in our zoning, so the top row of lots could be single family.
Okay, so my next understanding question then is the 1,500 square feet per dwelling or per building?
Per dwelling.
Or,
So 3,000 for duplexes?
no,
That's a dwelling, a duplex is 2 dwellings.
Yeah, so if, so for example, those 6 lots on the north side of the internal
Yeah.
road, if they instead subdivided those into 2 lots, and so they're each gonna be duplexes, their FSR, their lot size would be bigger, they'd be allowed more FSR because the lots would be bigger, and instead we would be capping them based on the size per dwelling, because we would say each of the dwellings can only be that 1,500 square feet, so it doesn't matter if your FSR lets you build more, that's your cap for your dwellings, but your garages can be additional to that. But because the lots are so small, they hit their FSR cap before they hit for a duplex, before they would hit both units being 1,500 square feet.
So they couldn't build 1,500 square feet regardless? of
They could
those
build
lots?
one that's 1,500 square feet, and they could build one that's significant, you know, they could build a 500 square foot unit and a 1,500 square foot unit, for example,
So on the same lot.
on the same lot.
Okay, so all these bigger lots along this side,
Yeah,
basically because they're wanting to put, they could have a 1,500 square foot single-family residence,
yeah,
but because of the size of the lot, they can't have 2 1,500 square foot duplexes, so for a total of 3,000.
yeah.
The FSR on those lots, if you just do the math, is.
No, I'm not asking about the FSR, I'm just saying if we didn't have any FSR limit, would they be able to build 2 1,500 square foot duplexes
No.
based on the 35% floor area lot coverage? Or the
no,
60%,
Judy,
maximum lot coverage of all buildings and structures, is 60%.
Like if we just didn't have the FSR,
Yeah.
then,
Then they would be able
yeah,
to,
yeah.
yeah.
If
I
you
mean, it's a
went,
limitation essentially.
if you went 3,000 square foot lot, and
Well-
you covered 60% of that, right? So you say at 1,800 square feet times 3 floors, you're up to almost 5,000 square feet. I mean, theoretically, you don't put any control on it. But I
Okay,
mean,
no, but I'm just trying to figure out, has anybody actually done the math
yeah,
as
that's-
to
that
what
is
the 60% lot coverage would allow them
I think that's what Judy was just gonna explain
Yeah,
to you.
and so they could have 1,500 square feet for each duplex on the 60%, but not because of the .85.
Let's do this.
The lots on the north side are about 258 square meters.
And how many square feet is that?
So,
Almost 3,000, right?
yeah,
That's,
so,
that's the big ones,
so
Yeah.
on the west side.
those are, yeah, the lots 7 through 12.
Okay. Or 270.
About 258 square meters.
So their footprint could be 1,800 square feet, and
Yeah.
that includes a garage.
May I just make a suggestion? Daniel sent us a message this morning
You did.
Oh, I
regarding
get
this.
that.
And the subject line is re-council agenda request. It might be useful for each of us to take a moment and read it.
Yeah. Okay, so the bylaw is very clear.
Yes.
Yeah, it's just a question.
Yes, the whole question is,
Yeah,
was
bylaw's
that what
clear.
we intended when we passed the bylaw?
And I certainly was
I
thinking,
recall.
I was thinking, well, you put in, you don't need a 1,500 square foot unit for retired people, say you did 1,100 square feet, and then you did a 900 square foot, which would be,
Depends on your retirement.
as your two units, right, that takes you up to 2,000, then you got 500 square feet for the garage and the staircase, and Bob's your uncle, so why do you have to have two 1,500 square foot houses? Homes in there, and also it was their decision to make those lots only 3,000 square feet. They could have put 5 lots on that bench instead of 6, right? And with the FSR, it would have allowed them to have bigger individual units and gone up to both of them at 140. So, I mean, this is perfectly reasonable, good zoning, and it's exactly, as I recall the discussions, it's exactly what Judy laid out to us very clearly right from the beginning.
Well, I remember carports being talked about as not,
Yeah,
wouldn't count
and
anywhere, so
and
that's.
also, I mean, you could just put parking spots in front of these things. These lots are actually quite deep, and you can move around. And there's all kinds of stuff you can do with your 2,500 square feet. But I'm not trying to tell planning how to do their job. All I'm getting at is that
This is clear.
because the person who wanted to do something decided to define it all in a particular way, doesn't mean that that's what's ultimately going to be built there. There's lots of choices, but I'm going to go to Maureen first because she said her.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just, what's the question before us?
Well, I guess they wanted to be able to build something, so my other last question is, do those lots enable carports to be built instead
Yes.
of garages?
Yes,
Okay, that's fine.
So the-
And you could have an enclosed stairwell. for
and you
your-
can enclose 60% of that carport.
And part of that could be an enclosed stairwell for your
Yeah.
Stairmaster thing, or whatever it's called.
Yes.
Yeah, but again, we don't.
Which I've
we don't
also
have
seen
to
those
get-
outside, by the way.
I
Don't know if that's.
We don't need to get.
It's not theoretical in as much that these lots have been substantially already sold.
Yes.
And what the people who we have supported throughout have faced, their reality is, they're faced with people who made a commitment to them and they've made a commitment to these people, right?
No, I have to interject there. This isn't the way it was portrayed to me. I mean, this started with a phone call from me, and I phoned Raj, got people all excited about this thing, but the bottom line is that, anybody who purchased that lot had this piece of paper in hand. If you looked at the marketing stuff, which I had, it said maximum Buildable was going to be 2,500 and some square feet, I think it was 2,550. And that's what these people bought, very, very knowingly. For anybody to say afterwards, oh, but you should be able to do this, it just doesn't fly.
Is that your point?
Well, I mean, looking at the schematics, I'm trying to help the people. It's not Cove House who face this issue. Because we all know why it's not Cove House. We all know the history, so I won't elaborate on that. So as a practical way forward, because anything else at this juncture is not particularly helpful, they can at least build these carports as Gary described.
Yeah.
Then I suppose once the carports are built and we're saying, oh my goodness, this is not what we want to see. People like all this for aesthetic points. Then for a subsequent council, if they want to make an application to whatever,
To fill those carports in.
then but at least they need a premise on which to move ahead, because
The carports are gonna be there anyway.
yeah.
If they wanna come to the next council and say, hey, listen, we wanna close those things in, and put a covenant on those and say you can't live in there. Yeah, so all you're doing is cleaning up the front of it, that's basically what it is. But the covenant has to come with the rezoning, and that's gonna take time, and that's not what they've got right now. So that's their option, and I just wanted to, and thank you for that, I just wanted to run by council and get some feedback. Yeah, for the record, and
Okay.
Judy, thank you, and.
Well, I just wanted to clarify that everybody understood the facts and,
They did.
yeah,
There's no-
well, with us here at the table.
there's
I don't think
no
there's any
question
villains
in
in
my
this
mind.
story.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
End of discussion.
Maureen pulled 3.6.
Yes.
Yeah, it's just very brief, and it's regarding the recommendation, that Emma's discussion of this makes it clear that there's the expectation that the costs are going to be reimbursed by BC Hydro.
Yes.
And I would just like the recommendation to include that statement as well. So I propose an amendment to the recommendation that council approve an $8,000 capital expenditure in 2018, comma, cost to be reimbursed by BC Hydro, comma, for the purchase of two level 2, etc. I just would like it reflected.
I think the reason it's not reflected that way is because there is not a guarantee.
Oh.
I mean,
Oh.
an absolute
This says
guarantee,
commitment.
right? There's a commitment. And so there is a slight risk that it may not get reimbursed. And again,
Okay, well, maybe
so.
reword it as costs are expected to be reimbursed.
But that doesn't fit in the recommendation. I mean,
But do you see my point, though?
How
Yeah,
about
yeah,
aware
yeah.
of? How about aware of?
Yeah.
But with the expectation of reimbursement.
so the other side of the coin could be, we approve the expenditure of the 8,000 subject to receiving a grant confirmation that BC Hydro will reimburse.
Yeah, I mean, well, Ross, you explained the
We,
complexity.
now Emma can correct me, Emma, we've got an email commitment from them, but we don't, beyond that, we don't have a written agreement that they are going to reimburse us, and I don't believe they are willing to go beyond the email commitment. So I believe the email commitment is assurance that we will be committed, that we will be reimbursed, but there is a chance they could go back and say, well, it doesn't fit within our it's unlikely, but there is a minimal risk that we won't get reimbursed, and it's only for the purchase of those, charger units.
Just let me clarify one thing. This is part of a larger project for them, right? So this is a community amenity type of thing that they have room in their budget, and they're saying that they're going to do this. I think that if it all fell apart, we might end up sending the units back because we didn't pay the invoice. I don't know, but I don't believe that it is substantive. I talked to Jerry Muir about it, getting confirmation, and he explained where the money was coming from and how it was doing it. And so we do have the email with that undertaking, and let's face it, in their world, $8,000 is 15 cents.
Rounding error.
I wouldn't get overly concerned that this is going to be decided by
It's just that we had never, in my recollection, passed a recommendation where we haven't specified the source of the funds.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, you're probably quite right. It's
So
that
that's, you know, to be
situation.
funded, that's what I'm saying, if we put in to be funded by BC Hydro, to be offset by a grant from BC Hydro, or.
Could we say cost expected
it's
to
an-
be,
Sorry, I was just gonna interject, sorry, I
Yeah.
didn't mean to interrupt.
No,
but
go
as
ahead.
an I was just gonna say we can put it as an external funding source.
Yeah.
And I don't think we should be specific in the recommendation and put BC Hydro because they don't want
yes,
that to be setting any precedent or
So-
anything
so
like that for other
that's my
communities.
question
Yeah.
is,
So I
do
think,
we wanna spend this $8,000 if we don't get an external funding source?
well,
Cause the way the motion's worded right now,
Says we are.
we basically have to spend the money before we get reimbursed, so the money will be spent. If the external funding source doesn't, it's very likely,
yeah,
but if it does not materialize,
where's
and
the
we've
money
already
coming from?
purchased it, then that purchase will have to be funded from our internal resources.
Do we have money to, do we have $8,000 surplus kicking around in the budget to fund it?
We
Or
have
are we gonna
equipment
end up in a-
reserves and other sources that we would have to look for to fund it in the event the external funding didn't
So then
materialize.
maybe we need to, in the motion, say if the external funding does not materialize, it will be funded from the equipment replacement or some reserve.
next year's care refund.
Well,
Yeah.
care refunds being spent on something else.
Well, next year's, that's why I said.
Well, that's my other question, is, will this get purchased by the end of 2018? Does it have to be done then, or is?
It has to be done by the end of 2018,
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
Okay, how about the council approve an $8,000 capital expenditure in 2018 to be funded by an external source or municipal reserves
Yes,
Yeah, perfect.
for the purchase of loan?
that works.
Yeah, I second that.
Yeah,
Okay.
all in favor?
Yeah.
Done.
Thank you.
Moving right along.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And when are they, are the installation costs expected to be substantial?
Too late.
Depends where they go.
I think we're looking, yeah, depends on where it goes, exactly.
Whether or not you have to put in another power pole, whether you pull it
Yeah,
off the
so,
building, et
so
cetera, et
before
cetera.
we make the final decision, I mean, 8,000 may be peanuts, but we might be looking at 20,000 or 30,000 for installation costs?
No.
But 10 or 12, I don't know, just pick a number. But the,
So it'll,
Have
if
the
the
whole
installation
final-
costs look really high, then staff will be coming back to us and giving us some caution.
yeah,
Yeah,
and
that'd
maybe
be
we'll put them on some private property.
Yeah.
We'll
very
get
good.
BC Ferries to put them in. Part of their
Trans-
transit.
Translink.
Whereas there's no place to park down there.
Put it in the ferry. Put it in the scooter shed. Anyway, we're
Okay.
adjourned.
Thank you. Yeah.
For those people who have come for a 1 o'clock committee of the whole meeting, I'm afraid we're running a little late. We now have a closed meeting that we are going into at
Well, we could
11:30.
do that.
Then we're having lunch.
We could
What are you for lunch? So we have some blood sugar in
do
our
the
diet?
closed meeting after the
We can
Yes.
certainly do the closed meeting after the committee of the whole. I think that might be fair,
Yeah,
The,
because it doesn't involve
I
public.
agree.
okay,
Yeah, let's do it that way.
We're going to,
We're gonna
Adjourn
do
for
it.
lunch.
for lunch anyway.
We're gonna adjourn for a quick lunch? Yes.
Well, I would, in
15
fairness to
minutes?
people
Why-
attending, why don't we say 1:30?
What time
Well,
is
we've
it
been
now?
grinding away here since 9:30 this morning.
The other thing you do is just grab the food and have
I
it
just,
working.
I just need some food, so I have some blood sugar so I can think.
Yes, exactly. No, let's
Thinking is good.
say 1:30 for sure, the committee of the whole meeting will start. Okay? Not try to, yes, I'll make it.
Can't do that, because it's blood
for nothing,
Maybe we can offer them a cookie or something.
Guys, we need to have a Okay, we'll talk. Yes.